And if you are a guru, air quotes,
Yeah.
and you're the person doing that, like how many of them just start cults, and how many of them, it
Yeah.
winds up being sexual.
Well, Jung was asked once to comment on psychedelic experience. I think he was asked about what Huxley was doing, and Jung's answer was, beware of unearned wisdom.
Let's go,
Very
Carl
smart.
Jung.
Very
They're
smart.
very, very smart.
Yeah, unearned.
Unearned
Because,
wisdom.
almost all wisdom comes at a price and a long, long road to get to that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a quick fix. There's no quick fixes. This idea that you're just going to trip balls and figure it all out.
Yeah, and then you've got it. No,
Yeah.
that's
Mm-mm.
no.
No, and everyone that I know that thinks they've figured it out are the most lost.
Yeah.
They're, especially the ones
Yeah,
that are
if you're lucky,
espousing
you
it
can
to
come
other
out of an
people.
experience like that knowing that, like Socrates, and Socrates may have learned this from.
Before getting into Socrates, I'm really glad that he mentioned him. It's very fitting. But Carl Jung, my goodness, yeah, he was a cerebral individual. He knew what he was thinking. He knew what he was doing. But the concept of unearned wisdom, it seems actually intuitive, because wisdom is something that's very integrated. As we know, knowledge is, being informed about a piece of information, whereas wisdom is integrating that knowledge into your being, into how you view life, and into how you operate. And it has to it can't really be injected into you. Well, maybe if one day we live in the Matrix, if we already don't, and we have those holes where we're able to just download information, maybe then unearned wisdom can work in society. But at least as of right now, we have to earn our wisdom, and that comes through the experience and acquiring knowledge and applying it that's most fitting to ourselves, our values, and the people around us. That's why wisdom seems so obscure and unique, because there's nowhere to really grasp it. You don't go to the wisdom pit and say, hey, I'm just going to go pick up some wisdom today. It's really being present with your experiences to integrate them based on your past and your experiences, so that you can conduct yourself in another way, in a probably more beneficial, hopefully more beneficial way in the future. So wisdom is very fascinating. It's almost like a golden coin from life that's granted you after you've passed a level, or after you've acknowledged the level itself that you've been living through. And Carl Jung, I think he said that so eloquently there. Beware of unearned wisdom. And if wisdom comes from those psychedelic experiences, because they open you up to the same perception that would open you up when you're being present with an experience over a long period of time, you might not apply it the same way. It's almost like you have to prepare for that wisdom for it to be integrated and useful.
From psychedelic experience seems quite probable, because he participated in the Eleusinian mysteries.
Yes.
He said, I know that I don't know. He was radically open to the revelation of it.
That's Socrates. I know that I don't know. I'm sure you know his famous quote. I was going to say, I think, therefore I am. That's Descartes, another huge famous quote. But it's, I know that I know nothing. And it's so odd, because the further that you dig into that rabbit hole of wisdom, the more you realize how much you don't know. It's almost like a portal that's throwing you into a new world, and you're only seeing this new realm for the first time, and you're just getting a glimpse of it, so you recognize what you don't know. And I think that's ultimately the benefit of wisdom, is it opens you up to what you don't know, because knowledge is understanding what you do know, whereas wisdom is acknowledging what you don't know. And when you see that world, when you at least just see that outline of that world of what you don't know, you at least know where to explore. And as Jordan Peterson, if you're familiar with his work, he always talks about aiming and aiming up. And aiming is what it gives you that purpose, it gives you that sense of direction, and is where you build your character. So becoming wise and seeking wisdom and finding glimpses of wisdom actually allow you to find that trajectory, to pierce through that direction of what you can be curious about. Because when you're curious about something you know exists, you know it's not delusion. But sometimes you have to be a little delusional at first to find it out. That's almost the paradox of wisdom, is you have to be delusional enough to be curious about something that might not even exist at all, to find what doesn't exist so that you can explore within it, if it does exist. And this seems so theoretical, because what are we talking about? Literal universes? Are we talking about concepts of mind? Are we talking about behavior? And I think it could be a bundle of all of them. I'm referring to those moments where you know that you now see life in a new way because of an experience or an amalgamation of experiences. And that's what's so fruitful about it. And you can dig deeper into asking the questions of how did you get there and how can you further explore this? It gives you those butterflies. You get excited about it.
Of his own ignorance, and certainly psychedelics can provide that. It's like, oh, I see. I don't have a clue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the first
Exactly.
step.
Yeah.
That's the first lesson you learn is you don't know shit.
Yeah.
And also the overwhelming understanding that this is available, that this experience is available, and it's so alien to modern experience, and just an average everyday experience. That this thing
Are we
is,
going to talk about aliens again? Joe
Yeah,
always goes
and
there.
it's right there. And it's so scary for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, maybe this time, you know, there are wise people working on that front, like Roland Griffiths, who unfortunately is very sick at the moment. And, you know, he's approached this with a lot more reverence and respect than more casual experimenters like Leary. And maybe this time, you know, God willing, we'll get it right and introduce these strange ancient chemicals back into our culture without blowing the lid right off it.
Right, and I think one of the best gateways to that is dealing with people who have trauma, soldiers.
Yeah, we're seeing that right now with microdosing. There are a lot of studies that are taking place to microdose some of these psychedelics like psilocybin and like others for people who do have trauma, high anxiety, PTSD, to relieve those experiences. And I'm not going to dig too much on that because I'm just not too familiar with it. I've skimmed some of the articles on that, but don't know too much in depth to talk about it. But if you do, please let me know. And why is it that psychedelics are providing relief to people who are in those positions? One thing that I will do, though, is ask, do psychedelic experiences relieve the trauma, at least to some capacity, because they open you up to the vastness of life? Is it, if we're using the previous conversation here as reference for how it opens up your scope of reality, is opening up that scope of reality almost allowing you to diminish the significance that hold, that anxiety has on you? Perhaps you'd think it would actually inflate it because the more insignificant it means, the less you might understand it. But who knows? I'm not entirely sure.
With you know, PTSD, where they're doing MDMA therapy, and also other people that have had violent experiences in their life with MDMA.
Yeah.
It's helped them to overcome that.
Griffiths has helped people deal with, you know, paralyzing death anxiety consequential to cancer diagnosis. And,
Yes.
you know, and those studies, they're very dry. You know, we gave psilocybin to a group of people who were suffering from cancer, and their relationship with death radically transformed. And, you know, the implication is somehow that's a chemical transformation. And of course, to some degree it is, because it was induced by a chemical. But there's a mystery there. It's like, well, what happened to those people in that 6 hours that transformed their vision of death?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Jordan Peterson's mentioning here, it's like, of course, there had been a chemical change that could have shifted their perspective and the relationship to their pain or to their trauma, their cancer in this example here. But is there something that allowed them to change the meaning of that pain?
And what happens?
There's a bit of a mystery there.
During the most profound psychedelic experiences, are you actually in the presence of God? I mean, are there moments during those things where you kind of see it, you know, that the veil does get lifted and you do briefly for a moment.
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
I think the same thing happens to you to some degree when you fall in love. You know, like when you're in love with your kids, well, you see them better than you've ever seen anyone.
Yeah.
You see deeper into them than you've ever seen into anyone.
Yeah.
So love is the partial lifting of that veil of ignorance.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of romantic love too, is you see into the soul of the other person, so to speak. You see what they could be.
Yeah.
And that's what and they see what you could be, and you fall in love with that possibility. And that's not a delusion. It's not a chemical delusion. It's the basis of life itself. It's real.
I think it also applies to all love. I mean, just love for your fellow human being, and just in approaching people. Yeah, if you can manage it, but approaching people in that way.
Yeah.
Even people that have wronged you, even people that are that are lost.
Yeah.
Apply.
Yeah, it's really good to remember that. You know, one of the things I try to do with my family when we get, you know, sporadically attacked, often by people who really would like to, let's say, take me out, and along with me, my family. We sit and talk until we find a pathway forward that is characterized by the least amount of, you know, desire for revenge and anger possible. After contemplating the anger and the revenge quite deeply, you know, because you have to let that voice have its say too.
Yeah,
you know?
there's no...
Love it. I'd like to compliment what they're saying here in that if we see love as the highest feeling and most fulfilling experience a human can have, it seems to have something to do with a soul understanding and seeing a soul of another. It's like our bodies are just the vessels, but the souls are seeing each other for the first time. And when the souls are able to see each other, that's where a new energy is almost created. And I think that's what makes it so overwhelming, yet so beautiful, and something that we all seek and search for in our pursuit of meaning itself. And there's a great book called The Eden Project. James Hollis, I believe his name is, yes, who digs so deep into this and the perils and pitfalls of looking at love in terms of a pursuit of meaning, which does have its deficits to it, but also how coming together and seeing a loved one for who they are is actually the most freeing experience a human can have. So yeah, let's stop there. That was a fun one. I always want to watch more of these conversations. This episode is over 3 hours, but I'm glad that we got a good glimpse of it together here. So let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe. And any questions that you have based on these topics or other topics that you'd like me to explore, feel free to let me know. We're here in this together. So let's explore philosophically and have fun with it. Have a great one. Bye-bye.